Hi, how are you doing, beautiful people? I hope you're doing all right. So today we're going to talk about relationships and what's wrong with them. Why are we? All of us have so many bad experiences with relationships. Why should we? No matter how hard we try, no matter how hard we commit ourselves, we still get it wrong a few times. Of course, there were no clear instructions. There was just an idea that we followed. And I'm going to talk about this idea, while it's a beautiful goal, it's a beautiful concept, but it's nothing more than a concept. Fiction. Just as good as the fairy tales we've heard about them, in which we've heard about them. And yes, you have the ability, if that's your dream, that fairy tale kind of love, that fairy tale kind of life, happily ever after, that ideal that is in everyone's head. This is everyone's perfect. Have family, have kids. Yeah, these are great things. And if you want it, you can create that. Don't ever doubt yourself. Don't ever doubt yourself. The question is, do you want it or not? Do you want it or not? You might think you want it. It's beautiful. Look at my uncle, look at my parents. Families are great. It's a place we can have unconditional love, which we are entitled to. But are we doing it right? Are we looking at it right? And as a society, as humans, we've learned a lot of things. We're improving. We're doing it differently. There was once upon a time, and still to this day, there are people who cannot get divorced because of their religion. And there are countries who, uh, like, a woman of the family cannot apply for divorce. Cannot. There are countries still to this day, believe it or not. And there are religions to this day in all the countries of the world. And the people, even if they want to get divorced because if they're afraid of, you know, breaking breaking up with their church, breaking up with their friends who believe in that ideology, who are adhering to that ideology, they just get separated and never legally divorced. It's crazy, right? Yeah, but so we actually invented the divorce. I'm going to talk about that. But what's the root of the problem? What is the root of the problem? Why should we get divorced at all? Didn't we love each other at some point? Didn't didn't we share best memories with each other? Didn't we have produced this magnificent being, our child? How can we forget that? And here's the problem. because of this fictional thing, because of the ideal that not many people can meet and produce in their life. So we're talking about marriage. Let's talk about marriage first. 50%, at least in the U.S., 1 out of 2 marriages end up in divorce. What does that tell you? Doesn't that mean maybe they shouldn't have gotten married in the first place? If you look back at your own divorce, maybe, wouldn't you have lasted longer if you never married in the first place? Or would you have separated easier, sooner, less torture, less pain on both sides if you hadn't gave yourself this fake commitment? It's fake. The moment that the concept of divorce was invented, all and any couple who accept divorce as an option, their commitment, what they say, is a lie to tell themselves, and it's gonna only torture them. Yes, I will live the rest of my days with you, until I don't want to, unless I don't want to at some point. Then why do we tell the lie to each other? Why do we tell to each other that we are committed to each other for the rest of our lives before we are really sure? Wouldn't that put certain pressure on us? Wouldn't it make us forget about ourselves, our happiness? Because we think that we said something we should stick to? Think about this. You go to grocery store and you want to get salt. There are 10 different varieties, 10 different things to pick from. Sea salt, non-sodium salt. So many different options, different brands. Salt! Salt! Freaking salt! And let alone other stuff. Bread. Other stuff. I don't need to tell you. But then it comes to our life, our happiness. There's only one model. Yes, we've learned to start with dating. Don't start the commitment. Don't start exclusivity right from the beginning. But because there's this ideal, there's this fiction, this idea, this concept that we think our happiness depends on, we will suffer one way or another. You will suffer. You will suffer. Unless you learn to be happy without the relationship prior to starting a relationship. Because when you start a relationship with a lot of needs, your happiness is going to depend on that. And then, or at least you're going to think that your happiness is going to depend on the relationship. And no matter what crap you have to deal with in that relationship. You deal with it. It's gonna come at a cost, but you'll deal with it. You'll swallow it with pain, like swallowing, like chewing and swallowing a light bulb. Have you seen those crazy videos? Pieces of glass, you swallow it with pain because you're scared, because you're afraid. Oh my God, what am I gonna do without her, without him? And there are a lot of different things you can come to depend upon each other. It's financial things, living arrangements, safety, security, financial security. I'm not even talking about kids yet. Then there's other needs, emotional needs, intimacy, sex. That's all the beginning of an unhealthy relationship. Because it's okay. It's okay to start a relationship to fulfill those needs. That's okay. That's perfectly okay. But not to be aware of that fact and think at a moment at some point, because of the happiness it brings to love somebody, to be intimate with somebody, the happiness to feel secure somebody, and somebody is giving it to you without real expectation at some point, at the very beginning. You're going to feel euphoria, you're going to feel happiness, you're going to feel peace for the first time in a long time. And you are, then the problem starts. She is the one. Fiction, the fairy tale. And the rest of the story, we all know how it goes down. So if you're already in a relationship, there are many great masters. Just for example, search relationship, Anthony Robbins. Lots of valuable lessons. Yeah, you can't just on your own the two people in the relationship, unless you convince your partner you cannot renew your vows, right? It's kind of stupid. So you have to figure it out. I don't know how you should deal with it. Ask the expert. I'm not the expert. But once you're aware of what went wrong, it'll still help you to come in peace with it. Once you know that I should have been happy without this relationship, before starting this relationship, I didn't know that at the time. Now I can be happy with this relationship. Whatever that is there in it. I'm happy regardless of what I have to deal with. Once you find that happiness, a lot of things get adjusted automatically. And sometimes that adjustment involves separation and divorce. It's only you who can figure it out. It's So now let's get back to people who are starting a relationship. I'm talking about you now. What is lost? Can you tell me what is lost in that idea of the one, the idea of this life, family? These are all good stuff. But what was wrong? What's lost? I have to pick this up. I'll make another video. Okay, sorry about that. So, yeah. So, I think you might be convinced that your desires, your needs, your wants, your plans, your life plans, your fulfillments, your happiness was pretty much the last concern in a predefined plan that you wanted to put yourself in. Or the idea that is a great idea, but might not be yours. How to make it yours? Very simple. Be free. Don't let anything take away your freedom. First, as I said, find happiness within yourself. You will find that that's not achievable when you are a slave to other people's blessings, other people's ideas, other people's ideals. Once you break those chains, you will become free and you will become happy by yourself. Then once you start a relationship, if you want to, so you would invent your own, you will invent your own model instead of just conforming. No matter what your backgrounds are, how different you are, do you think the same? How long of a conversation can you have? How much do you agree on things? Are you spiritually on the same level? Are you ideologically on the same level? Are you intellectually on the same level? Are you philosophically at the same level? So these things become very important when you have kids. You want to raise a kid together. It's hard for a kid to follow two sets of rules. And a lot of other things that you have to consider. I'm just naming a few. What's important? Everything that is important to your happiness, you have to take into account. What you're bringing to the table, what you are getting out of it. I am more financially stable now that I'm with you. That's great. You know what? Once you mindfully take all these factors into account and invent your own. So that's what many people do in their dating. Invent your own model of how to live happily with each other, peacefully. You will give commitment when it's time, not a minute sooner. You will become exclusive to one another in a way in a time that is actually healthy. That is actually the time, the moment for it to come. Before that, if you do too soon, so that's the reason. That's the reason why, like, all that feeling, that beautiful feeling, that love, that unconditional love. Even if there are needs, but you're just giving without expectations. The beginning of this beautiful relationship. That's why that flower dries and dies. That flame dies, gets cold. That's why we cannot maintain it. Because we're not being mindful of it. We're not being present. There's something else we're thinking about. That ideal. That ideal. I mean, how we want to conform to it so hard that we forget about ourselves. What makes us happy. So that way, even if you do a breakup, it's just that you decide, yeah, so once upon a time, this was good for me. It's no longer good for me. And that will not stop you from loving each other. You will love each other for the rest of your lives. I've seen that. And I've done that. It's one of the best couples I've ever known. They're like my spiritual father and mother. They're now right about 84. He is and she is about 78. Just a couple years ago, after decades of being married, because they have relatives from their previous marriages and brothers, sisters in different states. They figured out they didn't want to live with each other anymore because they couldn't be in the same state. They stopped. They got divorced, and they're now very happy boyfriends and girlfriends. Have you ever heard of that? I haven't. A lot of it's very rare. Because what these two people have, that I adore, is freedom. I can learn from is freedom. Knowing that the minute that you're not free, you'll be miserable. You will remain ever as best friends. You will remain ever as lovers. You don't have to be physically together to be lovers. Just pick up the phone every once in a while and just give unconditional love. Who's to say that you're not lovers? Be mindful. Be aware of what's happening in your relationship and build your own model. That's my message. Know what's happening. And what you're experiencing is not fiction. That's the experience. Be mindful of it. Feel it. Feel it. Live it. Stop thinking. Stop thinking and how things should be. The more we think, the less we feel. Yes, do think. Do think when it's connected to your feelings. You have to articulate. You have to figure things out. Okay, so this is a living arrangement. So I want to have a baby. I think you're the right person. But obviously you don't want a commitment. You also want a baby. You make a wonderful father. You know that. And you want that. But we're not ready for a commitment. Many people are doing that. Many people are doing that. But the problem is many don't. They want kids. We have to get married. Yes, if it might be better for the kid if you have one family already. But only if you are one happy family. If you're gonna fight all the time, if you're gonna be miserable all the time, if you're like not fighting, you have this level of discipline, self-control, courtesy, that you don't fight, but you're miserable. How much is left of you to give love to this poor little kid? Nothing. Not much. And I started this conversation with the fact that 50% of the marriages end up in divorce. So at least 50%, maybe we're better off not getting married in the first place. Right? That's how I started this conversation. What about the other 50% that are staying married? How many of them are very happy? How many of them are healthy? I'm not here to judge. But I lived the unhappy married life for way longer than I was supposed to. Way longer than I should have. Okay. Don't forget my message. Don't forget about yourself. First, find yourself. Find yourself. Find your inner peace. Find your happiness. Before making it more complicated by getting into a relationship. Why do you have to get into a relationship? You want sex? You want intimacy? You want a boyfriend? Okay. That might as well be part of your happiness. But if you commit yourself before you're ready, if you become exclusive before you're ready, you are going to suffer some pain. Think about what you want. Think about what you desire. Think about what you need, what fulfills you. This is the kind of thinking that is good. This straight coming out is connected to the reality of your feeling. Otherwise, it's all fiction. Otherwise, you will lose yourself in the process of thinking. Well, what kind of thinking I'm talking about? Oh, I should do this, I should do that, without knowing if you want this or want that. I think I'm already repeating myself. So I wish you a happy life before I'm wishing you a happy, painless relationship that you you will invent. I could have named 1,000 different models of relationships. There are names, just look them up. Ethical, non monogamous, polyamorous. Different concepts that works for different people. That somebody invented for himself or herself, or the couple did for themselves. But is that the right one for you? I could have named 20, 30 different types of relationships that I came across and I've learned about in the pursuit of finding something for myself. But I know that depending on the partner I will choose, we have to come up with every detail together. Otherwise, we are going to suffer. So that's my message to you. That's my message to you. I love you.